Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to read to you a book today called The Greedy Couple by C. Lore, illustrated by Duakacha Her. This book is about a story, talks about the complexity and the beauty of the human heart. It also teaches about the dignity of being pure in your thoughts, in kind words, and in your actions. This book was published in 2016. So I hope you enjoy the story and you can follow along with me. This book is written in English, so I'm going to read the English version of it. Here we go. In the highlands of a faraway Hmong village, there once lived a husband and a wife. They were very rich, but also very greedy, so everyone called them the greedy couple. Each year, the greedy couple grew a rich product of rice and sold it for silver and gold. Husband, how much did we make this year? Asked greedy wife. We made so much more than last year, replied the greedy husband. Great, now give me my share, demanded greedy wife. Indeed, the greedy couple was very happy. But the more the greedy couple possessed, the greedier they became. They were very protective of their wealth, always worrying that someone would steal it. So they kept their silver and gold hidden, even from each other. Greedy husband put his silver and gold in a jar made of clay. Then he hid it beneath a hole under a tree. As for greedy wife, she wrapped her share inside a silky cloth and secretively placed it under her bed. Back in the days, the Hmong people used silver bars. They don't use cash like they do today. Also, back in the days, the Hmong people hide their silver and gold in the ground. They dig a hole and they hide it so nobody can find it and it doesn't get burned or anything. So the only people that know where it's hidden is the people who hid it. One day, Mr. Lee, a poor farmer, visited the greedy couple's house. My rice harvest was not bountiful this year. Can you spare some rice for my family, please? Said Mr. Lee. What do you have that we can trade? Asked greedy wife. If nothing, we cannot help you, said greedy husband. The greedy couple threw back their heads and laughed. They would never give anything away for free. We'll give you rice if you give us your hog for meat, said the greedy husband. The hog was Mr. Lee's most valuable livestock, so he didn't want to trade. You have fine clothes, plenty of good things to eat, and no children to feed. My family needs the meat, responded Mr. Lee. Greedy husband smugly said, Fewer mouths to feed with just us two. If you can't give us meat, then we cannot help you. Disappointed and upset, Mr. Lee turned away and said angrily, Greedy old fools, one day you will learn that there's more to life than just your wealth. Mr. Lee disappeared down the road and returned to his family without a single grain of rice from the greedy couple. One rainy day, greedy husband broke into a coughing fit and became very ill. Greedy wife did all she could, but all was in vain. She could not bring her husband back to life. And just like that, poor greedy wife was now all alone. She wept and mourned for many days. After a while, greedy wife began to wonder about her husband's silver and gold. She was clueless to where he had hidden it. Greedy wife spent days searching everywhere, but still she found nothing. As time passed, the rice grew plenty. The sun beamed down and made patterns of shimmering light and shadows amongst the field. Greedy wife spent all her days harvesting the rice, but it was more work than she could bear. Never in her life has she worked so hard. It's impossible for me to harvest this rice all by myself, said Greedy Wife, shaking her head in distress. The next day, Greedy Wife awoke to the sound of chirping birds. She dressed hurriedly and was ready much earlier than usual. Then she paced down a dirt path and across some rolling hills to find help. Otherwise, her rice would go dry and be wasted. As Greedy Wife neared her destination, she saw some children playing joyfully together. She stopped to catch her breath, and at that instant a voice called out loudly, "My daughters, my sons, come home to eat," the voice said. There stood Mr. Lee at the front door of his house, calling for his children. Mr. Lee noticed Greedy's wife was standing outside. Greedy Wife was quick to speak and said, "I lost my husband and need help harvesting my rice. Can you help me?" Mr. Lee didn't say a word, nor did he react. But then he took pity on her. "Of course I can help you, but you must give me half of your rice harvest or pay me with silver and gold," replied Mr. Lee. Greedy as always, Greedy Wife clenched her teeth. She didn't want to give away any of her rice nor her silver and gold. "But you've helped others for free," said Greedy Wife. Mr. Lee's eyes drew wide. He leaned closer. "And what have you done for me so that I may give you my labor for free?" "Be glad that I would even consider working for you," Mr. Lee said firmly. Greedy Wife looked away ashamed. She thought and thought. Only Mr. Lee would want to work for her, for he had children to feed. Greedy Wife held her tongue and said, "Very well, I will give you half of my rice harvest, but no silver and gold." Mr. Lee agreed and accepted the offer. As soon as the sun rose the next day, Mr. Lee went to work at once. And day after day, from dawn till dusk, he worked in the field gathering the rice for the Greedy Wife. One afternoon, tired from a hard day's work, Mr. Lee walked over to a tree to rest beneath the shade. He hardly had he laid himself down when he noticed something was on the ground. Immediately, Mr. Lee scattered the dirt in all directions. He dug and dug until he came or caught sight of an old and dusty jar filled with silver and gold. Mr. Lee sat silent and pale as he thought of what to do. Then he wrapped his shirt around the jar, cradled it with his arms, and carried it home. Days passed. No one mentioned anything about a missing jar of silver and gold. Mr. Lee wanted to keep it. "My family would never go hungry again," Mr. Lee thought to himself. But then, after much thought, Mr. Lee knew it was wrong to keep something that was not his. He could not commit such an unrighteous act and remain at peace. So Mr. Lee did what he knew was right and returned the silver and gold to the Greedy Wife. "I found this hidden in the field. I think it belongs to you," said Mr. Lee. Greedy Wife could not believe her eyes, but most of all she was amazed at what Mr. Lee had just done. All night long, Greedy Wife lay awake and thinking about Mr. Lee's good deed. The more she thought, the more she felt something happening to her greedy heart. And it was then that Greedy Wife decided to change. Early the next day, Greedy Wife made her way to Mr. Lee's house once more. I have a gift for you and your family, said Greedy Wife. She handed something over to Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee unwrapped the silky cloth and saw that it was full of shiny silver and gold. Your act of kindness has given me hope and brought me peace. Take it as a token of my gratitude and come back next year or each year to help me harvest my rice. I will share it with your family, said Greedy Wife, not so greedy anymore. Mr. Lee was delighted and very grateful, for his good deed had been returned to him in abundance. And that's the end of the story. This is Miss C. Lore, who is the author of the book. What have you done if you found that pot of gold? Mr. Lee gave it up. I wonder what you would have done. Would you do what Mr. Lee did? Thank you for listening to this story, and I hope you enjoy it. We'll see you next time. Bye! 星期多。